Hello, everyone, and welcome. I hope you're all doing very well today. Welcome to the stream. Hello, hello. So, my darlings, today we are going to be doing a little bit of horror story reading. I love that song so much. All right. I was a bit unprepared, I would say. That's nice. Yeah, we need a little bit of ambiance. But first, let me say hello to everybody. Laura, congrats on getting first today, darling. Zan, how's it going? Welcome in. Game Addict, good to see you. Lava, hello, hello. Nico, glad to have you here. Abby, hello. And Enclave, welcome in. Hello. Boop. You trying to boop me? I don't know if I'll let that slide. It's a little bit humid in my apartment today. How are you all doing? It's evening for most of you. How have your days been? Oh, hello, Dr. Wolf. I don't believe you said anything in chat. How was I to know you were here? It is good to see you, Dr. Wolf. I'm glad you're here. You're drawing. Ooh, very cool. We love artists here. We stand artists. You're finally over strep throat? I'm glad to hear that. I'm sorry. Strep throat sounds rough. You'd cut your own PNG's hair? Interesting. Did you cut all of it? Did you shave the head? If not, I think you should have. Hello, Megu. Welcome in. I hope you're doing well today, darling. Strep sucks. Yeah, that sounds rough. Hello, Luminous Peak. Welcome in. Luminous Peak, thank you for following earlier. I appreciate it. You followed online, but I did see it. Don't think I missed it. You're appreciated. Hey, Kai. Yeah, today we're doing a bit of horror story ASMR. A bit of reading ASMR. Although I don't know if this fits in the ASMR category. Because I was talking with Laura earlier and she said something makes a lot of sense. ASMR is supposed to be relaxing, but I think the goal of today is not quite to relax you. No worries, Mego. I hope you get some good rest. I'm glad you stopped by at all. You think either way it'll work? I agree. My voice is making you blush? Noted. I'm definitely not going to abuse that. Not even a little bit. Bonks. Nobody deserves bonks here. This is a safe lewd space. I do. Oh my goodness. Bonk Laura. Yeah, she could use it. Yeah. Oh my goodness. No. Nico deserves head pats. Everyone should go ahead, Pat Nico. Okay. By the way, if any of you have horror stories that you'd like me to read, feel free to send the suggestions my way. I am open to different things, but if there are no suggestions, I have a few things planned as well. Happy butt wiggles. Oh my god. You guys are all so goddamn cute. I don't know what to do with myself. I think before we get started, I do just want to chat with you for a little bit. I want to see what's going on with you guys. Let's nap. Gremlins can be cute, Nico. Hey, okay, welcome in. Oh, soul. ASMR. Yeah, we're doing a little bit of ASMR today. A bit of horror story ASMR. I think Ekek was not quite prepared mentally, so I hope she hangs on. You guys need to take good care of yourselves, okay? Sleep is important. Okay. Oh my goodness. Oh, that's why you need a bucket. Okay, okay. Can you hear the background noise okay? Is it balanced all right? Oh my goodness. That might be a little bit too loud. I just want it to be very subtle. That should probably be good, right? Beautiful. So what's up, guys? You're fucking smiling, giggling, blushing because of this? There's no way that I've had that effect on you already, okay? I don't believe you. You're wide awake. ASMR is supposed to get you sleepy. You passed out yesterday when you got off work. Went to bed at 8 p.m., got up at 7. Holy. I'm sure your body needed it though. Love you, good reading stream. I'm excited too. I've kind of tried something like this in the past, but it was very different. So I'm excited to see how this goes. And I have a good friend who does reading streams all the time. I got a bit of advice from him earlier. If you don't know who Best Dad Tuber is, he's worth checking out 100%. He does things like this all the time. Actually, I'm going to shout him out because he's not here, so you can't click his name. I'm sorry if the clip is loud. Oh, God.
I hurt you.
Oh, no.
We've known each other for so long. Your heart's been
I'm
aching,
so
but
sorry.
you're too shy to say it. But inside, we both know what's
I
been
can't
going
believe
on.
this is happening to me
We
right
know
now.
the game and we're gonna play it. And if you ask me how I'm feeling,
I can't believe
don't
this.
tell me you're too.
Someone needs to clip that so I can send it to Dad. I can't believe that just happened. Holy shit. Okay. Let's get back into our nice and relaxed states, okay? That didn't just happen. We can pretend that didn't just happen. Hey, Aoki. Welcome in. Not much. Not much. I'm excited for today's stream. It's going to be a little bit different from what I normally do. But I like trying new things. And I hope you do too. Clip posted? Bet. Did you throw it in my... Yeah, you threw it in my Discord. Thank you very much, Wolfie. I appreciate it. Actually, I'm going to send that to him right now. because I think that would be really funny. My goodness. You don't want me to say your name like that? What do you mean? I just said it normally, Aoki. Multiple clips? Love to see it. That might make a good TikTok too, depending on if you clipped it with like if you adjusted the stuff so that it looks good and is presentable, and I use it as a TikTok, I will give you a reward. If you don't know about my clip reward program, if I use a clip that you made for content outside of Twitch, like TikToks, YouTube Shorts, I will contact you and let you know. And you can choose either $5, $5 US, or you can request something of me. And I have the right to veto the request, and you can choose something else, but it doesn't hurt to ask for what you want. It could be a voice line, like a custom voice line recording. It could be a wake up alarm. Could be that you want to play a game with me sometime, or maybe like an hour or so. You know, I'm open to a bunch of different things, and you can be creative with it, but you gotta give me that content first. You gotta make it easy for me. You clip through mobile, so probably not gonna be good. It's okay. We can check out Nico's as well. Maybe she'll get a reward. That's an idea. Yeah, for the wake up alarm. Aw, what's wrong, my favorite little password generator? Something on your mind? Aw, you're so cute when you're bottom. So cute when your bottom enemy shows. Energy. Bottom energy. Bottom enemy? Bottom enemy. What am I saying? Hey, let's go. Bottom enema. Don't worry, I won't give you an enema. Unless you really want me to. We could talk about it. No enema? What's going on? A lot of things. Oh, you're leaving already? But I was so enjoying having you here, Nico. Chocolates? Oh my god, Aoki. What are you saying? You are so goofy. Smeggers, oh no. I was not the one that said enema. I think I accidentally said enemy. You're kind of vibing right now? You don't think you're invulnerable to being flustered. I bet you're not invulnerable to being flustered. But you know what? You're such a good boy, so I'm not gonna try. I'll treat you well today. I can't make any promises for other days, though. You guys make me feel like I have a superpower or something. You gotta relax, okay? I won't hurt you. You're not in danger here. Oh, Nico. You have a request for me? You're saying please, so I'm assuming you're begging for something. Maybe there's something I could give you? I know what a Kek wants. A Kek wants my foot on her back, pushing her into the dirt. You're still working? Yeah, I think I got a kick pegged. Oh my goodness. You guys are so ridiculous. Hi, Shy. Welcome in, darling. I'm glad to have you here. Work faster. Yeah. Get your work done so you can focus on me. I want all your attention, Nico. I want your eyes on me today. You turned around so fast. Oh, you're such a good girl. Doing what I want. Ah, how sweet of you. Mm. Oh my goodness. You guys are too fun. I just like playing with you all so much. Mm. Do you enjoy being my toys? You enjoy me messing with you, playing with you, doing whatever I want? No, you don't enjoy it? That's a shame, Akek. I had so many plans. What are we playing? Lowers volume. Oh no, are you a bit too weak for this right now, Nico? I thought you could take more from me. That's a shame. I need to stop. Hmm. Are you sure about that? I think I need to keep going. Right? You need a verbal and written plan of it. Hmm. We'll see. Seems like I might need to be careful if I want to do ASMR. Hmm. Would you guys want just like a normal talking ASMR stream? Kind of like what we're doing now? At some point. I still want to read horror stories today. We could have an ASMR day every week. If that's something you're interested in. Read the stories. That'll be a fun test run for that kind of stream. My voice is good. Hmm. I guess I have to take your word for it. Can't make you melt if I don't scare the living shit out of you. You're never saying that again? Oh. Well, don't worry. I won't forget that you said it. It does mean a good bit to me, and I appreciate you, Nico. Back to bratting. Hmm. I appreciate you, Wolfie. All right, shall we get into some stories? I think a good one to start with would be some Edgar Allan Poe. I remember in high school, they had us read The Telltale Heart, but at that point of my life, I did not appreciate literature. So I'd like to read it with you all. Maybe get a new perspective on it. Hi, Moody. Welcome in. I'm glad to have you here. Hmm. Shall we? Hello, Dolly. Welcome in. Bet I can't make you melt in this ASMR stream. I thought I already did. Or were you just lying? If you were lying, I might have to punish you. Not yet. I guess I'll just have to try a little bit harder. Ah, you're at work. Oh. Genevieve, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the powerhouse. And thank you for making me realize that my alerts are a little bit loud. Let's see if I can't fix that. Hello. Is that a Desi emote? Are you a Desi viewer? I enjoy Desi quite a bit. Viewer tier 3 sub, winner of her fanfic contest. Really? Ooh. Hello, Chi-Chi. Welcome in. Anyone who supports Desi is a friend of mine, so I'm glad to have you here. I think there might not be an easy way for me to Okay, here's what I'll do. For today, I think just so we keep the ASMR vibes, I'm going to turn alerts off, but I will still read like subs and follows and things. That is something I didn't quite think about before stream. All right. Yes, we're going to read The Telltale Heart to start things off. All right. True. Nervous. Very, very dreadfully nervous I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease has sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how the first idea entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night. Object there was none, passion there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. He had the eye of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so, by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man, and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Kai, I'm glad you were able to stop by. I hope you have a great night. Thank you so much. Now this is the point. You fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing. But you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded. With what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before I killed him. And every night, about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it, oh so gently. And then, when I had made an opening sufficient for my head, I put in a dark lantern, all closed, so that no light shone out, and then I thrust in my head. Oh, you would have laughed to see how cunningly I thrust it in. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening, so far that I could see him as he lay upon his bed. Ha! What would a madman have been so wise as this? And then, when my head was well into the room, I undid the lantern cautiously, oh so cautiously. Cautiously, for the hinges creaked. I undid it just so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye. And I did this for 7 long nights. Every night, just at midnight. But I found the eye always closed, and so it was impossible to do the work. For it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning, when the day broke, I went boldly into the chamber and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone, and inquiring how he has passed the night. So you see, he would have been a very profound old man indeed to suspect that every night, just at 12, I looked in upon him while he slept. Wide Peepo, Happy Banana, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the Powerhouse. I'm very glad to have you here, darling. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. A watch's minute hand moves more quickly than did mine. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own powers, of my sagacity. I could scarcely contain my feelings of triumph. To think that there I was, opening the door, little by little, and he not even to dream of my secret deeds or thoughts. I fairly chuckled at the idea, and perhaps he heard me, for he moved on the bed suddenly, as if startled. Now you may think that I drew back, but no. His room was as black as pitch with the thick darkness, for the shutters were close fastened through fear of robbers. And so I knew that he could not see the opening of the door, and I kept pushing it on steadily. I had my head in, and was about to open the lantern, when my thumb slipped upon the tin fastening, and the old man sprang up in bed, crying out, "Who's there?" I kept quite still and said nothing. For a whole hour I did not move a muscle, and in the meantime I did not hear him lie down. He was still sitting up in the bed listening, just as I have done, night after night, hearkening to the death watches in the wall. Presently I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was the groan of mortal terror. It was not a groan of pain or of relief, oh no. It was the low stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul, when overcharged with awe. I knew the sound well. Many a night, just as at midnight, when all the world slept, it had welled up from my own bosom, deepening with its dreadful echo the terrors that distracted me. I say I knew it well. I knew what the old man felt, and pitied him, although I chuckled at heart. I knew that he had been lying awake ever since the first slight noise, when he had turned in the bed. His fears had been ever since growing upon him. He had been trying to fancy them causeless, but could not. He had been saying to himself, "It is nothing but the wind in the chimney. It is only a mouse crossing the floor. Or it is merely a cricket which has made a single chirp." Yes, he has been trying to comfort himself with these suppositions, but he has found all in vain. All in vain, because death, in approaching him, had stalked it with his black shadow before him and enveloped the victim. And it was the mournful influence of the unperceived shadow that caused him to feel, although he neither saw nor heard, to feel the presence of my head within the room. When I had waited a long time, very patiently, without hearing him lie down, I resolved to open a little. A very, very little crevice in the lantern. So I opened it. You cannot imagine how stealthily, until a length of single dim ray, like the thread of a spider, shot out from the crevice and fell full upon the vulture eye. It was open, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctness, all a dull blue, with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow in my bones, but I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, for I had directed the ray as if by instinct, precisely upon the damned spot. And have I not told you that what you mistake for madness is but over acuteness of the senses? Now, I say, there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, such as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew that sound well, too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury, as the beating of a drum stimulates the soldier into courage. But even yet, I refrained and kept still. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. I tried how steadily I could maintain the ray upon the eye. Meantime, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew quicker and quicker, and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I say, louder every moment. Do you mark me well? I have told you that I am nervous. So am I. So I am. And now, at the dead hour of the night, amid the dreadful silence of that old house, so strange a noise as this excited me to uncontrollable terror. Thank you, Monster Delphs. I appreciate you saying so. Only say I like your cut, G, if you plan on smacking my bald head. Okay? You better promise me. Yet, for some minutes longer, I refrained and stood still. But the beating grew louder. I thought the heart might burst, and now a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. He shrieked once, only once. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him. I then smiled gaily to find the deed so far done. But for many minutes, the heart beat on with a muffled sound. This, however, did not vex me. It would not be heard through the wall. At length, it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there many minutes. There was no pulsation. He was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more. If you still think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. The night waned, and I worked hastily, but in silence. First of all, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head and the arms and the legs. I then took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber and deposited all between the scantlings. I then replaced the boards so cleverly, so cunningly, that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. There was nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind, no blood spot whatever. I had been too wary for that. A tub had caught all. When I had made an end of these labors, it was 4 o'clock, still dark as midnight. As the bell sounded the hour, there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart, for what had I now to fear? There entered 3 men who introduced themselves with perfect suavity as officers of the police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused. Information had been lodged at the police office, and they, the officers, had been deputed to search the premises. I smiled, for what had I to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was my own in a dream. The old man, I mentioned, was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the town. I bade them search well. I led them at length to his chamber. I showed them his treasures, secure, undisturbed. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room and desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim. The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them. I was singularly at ease. Oh, Itzko, thank you for the biddies. I appreciate it. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chatted of familiar things. But ere long, I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone. My head ached, and I fancied a ringing in my ears, but still they sat and still chatted. The ringing became more distinct. It continued and became more distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued and gained definiteness, until at length I found that the noise was not within my ears. No doubt I grew very pale, but I talked more fluently and with a heightened voice. Yet the sound increased, and what could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound, much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I gasped for breath, and yet the officers heard it not. I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. I arose and argued about trifles, in a high key and with violent gesticulations, but the noise steadily increased. Why would they not be gone? I paced the floor to and fro with heavy strides, as if excited to fury the observations of the men. But the noise steadily increased. Oh God, what could I do? I foamed, I raved, I swore. I swung the chair upon which I had been sitting and grated it upon the boards, but the noise arose over all and continually increased. It grew louder, 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 and still the men chatted pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible they heard not? Almighty God! No, no! They heard, they suspected, they knew! They were making a mockery of my horror. This I thought, and this I think. But anything was better than this agony. Anything was more tolerable than this derision. I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt that I must scream or die. And now, again, hark! Louder, 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 louder! Villains! I shrieked. Dissemble no more. I admit the deed. Tear up the planks. Here, here. It is the beating of his hideous heart. That was I forgot how intensely that story ended. Yeah, I just took a sip, Doctor. Thank you. Thank you, Wolfie. That was amazing. I'm glad you think so. Yeah, Edgar Allan Poe is quite amazing. All right, I took another sip. Monster Delphs, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the powerhouse. You're so happy in here, Nico. That makes me incredibly happy. I hope you realize. This channel is made brighter by your presence. Thank you very much. I wonder, are there other Edgar Allan Poe stories that you would like me to read? I don't think I'm familiar with many. Oh, this story. I forgot about this story. Yeah. I'm surprised that they let us read that in high school. That's pretty intense. But I very much enjoyed it. What do you all think is Edgar Allan Poe's best short story? I've read excerpts of The Fall of the House of Usher. But only excerpts. I forgot to change my name on Twitter. There we go. You love The Fall of the House of Usher? It has great imagery. Perhaps we could read through that. I'd be okay with that. If no one else has requests, perhaps we'll do that one next. Am I drunk again? No, darling. It is 9 a.m. for me. I'm not going to be drinking this early. But welcome in, Nia. I'm glad to see you here. All right. It's 5 somewhere. Yeah, but your favorite is the cast of Amontillado? Ooh, that sounds really interesting. Let's do that one. Welcome back, Abby. You tutor English lit? Oh. Oh. I'm an English teacher, Luminous Peak. The Mask of the Red Death? Alright, let's do the Cask of Amontillado, and then we'll do the Mask of the Red Death. Sound good? I'll open it in another tab so I don't forget. Beautiful. Okay. The 1,000 injuries of Fortunato I had borne as best I could, but when he ventured upon insult, I vowed revenge. You, who so well know the nature of my soul, will not suppose, however, that gave utterance to a threat. At length I would be avenged. This was a point definitely settled. But the very definitiveness of it, which it was resolved, the very definitiveness with which it was resolved, precluded the idea of risk. I must not only punish, but punish with impunity. A wrong is unredressed when retribution overtakes its redresser. It is equally unredressed when the avenger fails to make himself felt as such to him who has done the wrong. It must be understood that neither by word nor deed had I given Fortunato cause to doubt my goodwill. I continued, as was my wont, to smile in his face, and he did not perceive that my smile now was at the thought of his immolation. He had a weak point, this Fortunato, although in other regards he was a man to be respected and even feared. He prided himself on his connoisseurship in wine. Few Italians have the true virtuoso spirit. For the most part, Their enthusiasm is adopted to suit the time and opportunity to practice imposture upon the British and Austrian millionaires. In painting and gemmery, Fortunato, like his countrymen, was a quack, but in the matter of old wines he was sincere. In this respect, I did not differ from him materially. I was skillful in the Italian vintages myself, and bought largely whenever I could. It was about dusk, one evening during the supreme madness of the carnival season, that I encountered my friend. He accosted me with excessive warmth, for he had been drinking much. The man wore motley. He had on a tight-fitting party-striped dress, and his head was surmounted by the conical cap and bells. I was so pleased to see him that I thought I should never have done wringing his hand. I said to him, "My dear Fortunato, you are luckily met. How remarkably well you are looking today. But I have received a pipe of what passes for Amontillado, and I have my doubts." "How?" he said. "Amontillado? A pipe? Impossible. And in the middle of a carnival." "I have my doubts," I replied, "and I was silly enough to pay the full Amontillado price without consulting you in the matter. You were not to be found, and I was fearful of losing a bargain. Amontillado. I have my doubts. Amontillado. And I must satisfy them. Amontillado. As you are engaged, I am on my way to Lucrezi. If anyone has a critical turn, it is he. He will tell me, Lucrezi cannot tell Amontillado from sherry, and yet some fools will have it that his taste is a match for your own. Come, let us go. Whither? To your vaults. My friend, no, I will not impose upon your good nature. I perceive you have an engagement. Lucrezi, I have no engagement. Come. My friend, no. It is not the engagement, but the severe cold with which I perceive you are afflicted. The vaults are insufferably damp. They are encrusted with nitre. Let us go, nevertheless. The cold is merely nothing. Amontillado, you have been imposed upon. And as for Lucrezi, he cannot distinguish sherry from Amontillado. Thus speaking, Fortunato possessed himself of my arm, and putting on a mask of black silk and drawing a robe clair closely about my person, I suffered him to hurry me to my palazzo. There were no attendants at home, and they had absconded to make merry in honor of the time. I had told them that I should not return until the morning, and had given them explicit orders not to stir from the house. These orders were sufficient, I well knew, to ensure their immediate disappearance, one and all, as soon as my back was turned. I took from their sconces 2 flambeaux, and giving one to Fortunato, bowed him through several suites of rooms to the archway that led into the vaults. I passed down a long and winding staircase, requesting him to be cautious as he followed. We came at length to the foot of the descent, and stood together upon the damp ground of the catacombs of the Montresors. The gait of my friend was unsteady, and the bells upon his cap jingled as he strode. "Hello, Nix. Welcome in." "Oh, wow? You see something you like?" "The pipe," he said. "It is farther on," said I, "but observe the white webwork which gleams from these cavern walls." "Hi, Kira. You hear something you like, is that so?" "Being silly again? Who, me?" "I'm not silly. When am I ever silly?" My goodness. "I am? I don't think I believe you." "I think you're the one being silly." Nix, thank you for following a few days ago, by the way. I appreciate it. Cute. I think you're projecting. Ugh. Yes, you're definitely the cute one. My star? What an adorable expression. He turned towards me and looked into my eyes with two filmy orbs that distilled the rheum of intoxication. Niter? He asked at length. Niter, I replied. How long have you had that cough? My poor friend found it impossible to reply for many minutes. It is nothing, he said at last. Come, I said with decision. We will go back. Your health is precious. You are rich, respected, admired, beloved. You are happy, as I once was. You are a man to be missed. For me, it is no matter. We will go back. You will be ill, and I cannot be responsible. Besides, there is Lucrece. Enough, he said. The cough's a mere nothing. It will not kill me. I shall not die of a cough. True, true, I replied, and indeed, I had no intention of alarming you unnecessarily. But you should use all proper caution. A draught of this medoc will defend us from the damps. Here I knocked off the neck of a bottle, which I drew from a long row of its fellows that lay upon the mold. Drink, I said, presenting him with the wine. He raised it to his lips with a leer. He paused and nodded to me familiarly while his bells jingled. I drink, he said, to the buried that repose around us, and I to your life. He again took my arm, and we proceeded. These vaults, he said, are extensive. The Montresors, I replied, were a great and numerous family. I forget your arms. A huge human foot door in a field azure. The foot crushes a serpent rampant whose fangs are embedded in the heel. And the motto? Nemo me impune lacessit. Good, he said. The wine sparkled in his eyes and the bells jingled. My own fancy grew warm with the medoc. We had passed through long walls of piled skeletons, with casks and puncheons intermingling, into the inmost recesses of the catacombs. I paused again, and this time I made bold to seize Fortunato by an arm above the elbow. The niter, I said, see, it increases. It hangs like moss upon the vaults. We are below the river's bed. The drops of moisture trickle among the bones. Come, we will go back ere it is too late. Your cough, it is nothing, he said. Let us go on. But first, another draught of the medic. I broke and reached him a flagon of De Grave. He emptied it at a breath. His eyes flashed with a fierce light. He laughed and threw the bottle upwards with a gesticulation I did not understand. I looked at him in surprise. He repeated the movement, a grotesque one. You do not comprehend? He said. Not I replied. Then you are not of the Brotherhood. How? You are not of the Masons. Yes, yes, I said. Yes, yes. You? Impossible. A Mason? A Mason, I replied. A sign, he said, a sign. It is this, I answered, producing from beneath the folds of my roquelaire a trowel. You jest, he explained, recoiling a few paces, but let us proceed to the Amontillado. Be it so, I said, replacing the tool beneath the cloak and again offering him my arm. He leaned upon it heavily. We continued our route in search of the Amontillado. We passed through a range of low arches, descended, passed on, and descending again, arrived at a deep crypt in which the foulness of the air caused our flambeau rather to glow than flame. At the most remote end of the crypt there appeared another less spacious. Its walls had been lined with human remains piled to the vault overhead in the fashion of the great catacombs of Paris. 3 sides of his interior crypt were still ornamented in this manner. From the 4th side the bones had been thrown down and lay promiscuously upon the earth, forming at one point a mound of some size. Within the wall thus exposed by the displacing of the bones, we perceived a still interior crypt or recess, in depth about 4 feet, in width 3, in height 6 or 7. It seemed to have been constructed for no especial use within itself, but formed merely the interval between two of the colossal supports of the roof of the catacombs, and was backed by one of their circumscribing walls of solid granite. Glad you're having a good time, Kira. I'm enjoying having you here. It was in vain that Fortunato, uplifting his dull torch, endeavored to pry into the depth of the recess. Its termination the feeble light did not enable us to see. Proceed, I said. Herein is the Amontillado. As for Lucrezi, he is an ignoramus, interrupted my friend, as he stepped unsteadily forward, while I followed immediately at his heels. In an instant he had reached the extremity of the niche, and finding its progress arrested by the rock, stood stupidly bewildered. A moment more, and I had fettered him to the granite. In its surface were two iron staples, distant from each other about 2 feet, horizontally. From one of these depended a short chain, from the other a padlock. Throwing the links about his waist, it was but the work of a few seconds to secure it. He was too much astounded to resist. Withdrawing the key, I stepped back from the recess. Pass your hand, I said, over the wall. You cannot help feeling the nitre. Indeed, it is very damp. Once more, let me implore you to return. No? Then I must positively leave you. But I must first render you all the little attentions in my power. The Amontillado, ejaculated my friend, not yet recovered from his astonishment. True, I replied. The Amontillado. As I said these words, I busied myself among the pile of bones of which I had before spoken. Throwing them aside, I soon uncovered a quantity of building stone and mortar. With these materials, and with the aid of my trowel, I began vigorously to wall up the entrance of the niche. I had scarcely laid the first tier of the masonry when I discovered that the intoxication of Fortunato had in a great measure worn off. The earliest indication I had of this was a low moaning cry from the depth of the recess. It was not the cry of a drunken man. There was then a long and obstinate silence. Posture check? That's a good call. I was slouching a little bit. Thank you, Nix. I appreciate you. We can't praise him too much. His head may get too large to rub. I highly doubt there is such a thing as too large to rub. I don't know. You guys do a very good job of stroking my ego. You give me quite a big head. I think I should be careful. I laid the second tier, and the third, and the fourth, and then I heard the furious vibrations of the chain. Oh my goodness, Nico. Yeah? Is that where your head's at? Do not be careful, have a big head. It is tempting. We like big heads? Oh my goodness. Don't die, Nico. I'm not done with you yet. The noise lasted for several minutes, during which, that I might hearken to it with the more satisfaction, I ceased my labors and sat down upon the bones. When at last the clanking subsided, I resumed the trowel and finished without interruption the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th tier. The wall was now nearly upon a level with my breast. I again paused, and holding the flambeau over the mason work, threw a few feeble rays upon the figure within. A succession of loud and shrill screams, bursting suddenly from the throat of the chained form, seemed to thrust me violently back. For a brief moment I hesitated, I trembled. Unsheathing my rapier, I began to grope with it about the recess, but the thought of an instant reassured me. I placed my hand above the solid fabric of the catacombs and felt satisfied. I reapproached the wall. I replied to the yells of him who clamored. I re-echoed, I aided. I surpassed them in volume and in strength. I did this, and the clamorer grew still. It was now midnight, and my task was drawing to a close. I had completed the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th tier. I had finished a portion of the last and the 11th. There remained but a single stone to be fitted and plastered in. I struggled with its weight. I placed it partially in its destined position, but now there came from out the niche a low laugh that erected the hairs upon my head. It was succeeded by a sad voice, which I had difficulty in recognizing as that of the noble Fortunato. The voice said, "A very good joke indeed, an excellent jest. We will have many a rich laugh about it at the palazzo. Over our wine." "The Amontillado," I said. "Yes, the Amontillado. But is it not getting late? Will they not be awaiting us at the palazzo, the Lady Fortunato and the rest? Let us be gone." "Yes," I said. "Let us be gone." "For the love of God, Montresor." "Yes," I said, "for the love of God." But to these words I hearkened in vain for a reply. I grew impatient. I called aloud, "Fortunato." No answer. I called again, "Fortunato." No answer still. I thrust a torch through the remaining aperture and let it fall within. There came forth, in return, only a jingling of the bells. My heart grew sick. It was the dampness of the catacombs that made it so. I hastened to make an end of my labor. I forced the last stone into its position. I plastered it up. Against the new masonry, I re-erected the old rampart of bones. For the half of a century, no mortal has disturbed them. In pace requiescat. That's quite the story, I'd say. I quite enjoyed that one. What did you all think? Happy butt wiggles. I appreciate the love, guys. All right. Actually, I think we might want to change up the vibe a little bit. You enjoyed my expression? Thank you. I appreciate you saying that, Kira. As I said before, if anyone has requests for what I should read, feel free. You're off work now. Ooh. Very nice. I'm good with my words. Thank you. Let's read I started this stream with Telltale Heart. I apologize. You may want to check the VOD for that one. What kind of vibe am I going for? Today I'm trying to stick with more horror stuff. But I think next week I might try like a normal story reading stream. You know? I also like Stephen King. Have I read The Lottery? I've read it before, but I would be down to read it again for you guys. I haven't read it on stream. I read it in like high school. Yeah. But I do like the vibes of The Lottery. The Lottery. Let's see. The Lottery by Shirley Jackson, right? Thanatopsis has dark vibes. It's a poem about death, but there's a bit of optimism at the end. Thanatopsis by William Cullen Bryant. Is that what you mean? Okay. Since it's so short, let's read that and then I'll read The Lottery. And then after that, we can read The Mask of the Red Death. Okay, this is Thanatopsis. To him who love in the... Wait, what? Okay, sorry. Let me try that again. I need a sip of water. This is written in iambic pentameter, isn't it? To him who in the love of nature holds communion with her visible forms, she speaks. She has a various language for his gayer hours. She has a voice of gladness and a smile, an eloquence of beauty, and she glides into his darker musings with a mild and healthy, healing sympathy that steals away the sharpness ere he is awake. When thoughts of the last bitter hour come like a blight over thy spirit, and sad images of the stern agony and shroud and pall, and breathless darkness and the narrow house make thee to shudder and grow sick at heart, go forth under the open sky and list to nature's teachings, while from all around, earth and her waters and the depths of air, comes still voice. Yet a few days, and thee, the all-beholding sun, shall see no more in all his course, nor yet in the cold ground where thy pale form was laid with many tears, nor in the embrace of ocean shall exist thy image. Earth that nourished thee shall claim thy growth to be resolved to earth again, and, lost each human trace, surrendering up thine individual being, shalt thou go to mix forever with the elements, to be a brother to the insensible rock, and to the sluggish clod which the rude swain turns with his share and treads upon. The oak shall send his roots abroad and pierce thy mould. Yet not to thine eternal resting place shalt thou retire alone, nor couldst thou nor couldst thou wish couch more magnificent. Thou shalt lie down with patriarchs of the infant world, with kings, the powerful of the earth, the wise, the good, fair forms and hoary seers of ages past, all in one mighty sepulchre. The hills, rock-ribbed and ancient as the sun, the vales stretching in pensive quietness between, the venerable woods, rivers that move in majesty, and the complaining brooks that make the meadows green, and poured round all, old ocean's grey and melancholy waste, are but the solemn decorations all of the great tomb of man. The golden sun, the planets, all the infinite host of heaven are shining on the sad abodes of death through the still lapse of ages. All that tread the globe are but a handful to the tribes that slumber in its bosom. Take the wings of morning, pierce the Barcan wilderness, or lose thyself in the continuous woods where rolls the Oregon and hears no sound save his own dashings, yet the dead are there, and millions in those solitudes since first the flight of years began, have laid them down in their last sleep. The dead reign there alone. So shalt thou rest, and what if thou withdraw in silence from the living, and no friend take note of thy departure? All that breathe will share thy destiny. The gay will laugh when thou art done. The solemn brood of care plod on, and each one as before will chase his favorite phantom. Yet all these shall leave their mirth and their employments, and shall come and make their bed with thee. As the long train of ages glide away, the sons of men, the youth in life's green spring, and he who goes in the full strength of years, matron and maid, the speechless babe and the gray-headed man, shall one by one be gathered to thy side by those who in their turn shall follow them. So live, that when thy summons come to join the innumerable caravan, which moves to that mysterious realm where each shall take his chamber in the silent halls of death. Thou go not like the quarry slave at night, scourged to his dungeon, but sustained and soothed by an unfaltering trust. Approach thy grave like one who wraps the drapery of his couch about him and lies down to pleasant dreams. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Luminous. Yes, of course I pronounced sepulcher correctly. I studied English. Hi, Ria. Welcome in. いらっしゃい。来てくれてありがとうございます。今日は英語の書くことを読みます。Yeah, that's a very cool poem. I like it a lot. Dad saw the clip that I sent him. Oh, goodness. That's so funny. Nico, I love that you sigh whenever I finish a story. Makes me happy. All right, Nico, I appreciate you. Thank you for lurking. Yeah, go take care of yourself, okay? I'm glad you're enjoying yourself. Hi, Moo. Welcome in, bro. Good to see you. Today we're doing something a little bit different. I hella enjoy you, Nico. All right. I think I'm going to take like a couple minutes of not reading just to like let my throat recover. It's kind of weird how like I could talk normally for stream for like hours and not like really feel it. But reading is different, you know? I don't know why reading is different. Performance is taxing. I suppose so. But I am having a really nice time. The reading is very soothing, to be honest. This is a great stream. You came on the best day. I'm so glad. Yeah, I love to see other fans of literature. You know what? What if I read you a horror story that I wrote? Would you all be interested in that? You're down? Okay, this is... I think... It's been really fun. You're happy to be here. I'm glad you found your way here too, Nix. I do remember you from Twitter, by the way. Don't you worry. Let's see. What would be a good horror story for me to read? I wrote a couple. There's one horror story that I haven't finished yet. Hello, Sunny darling. Welcome in. Let me read them all. Let's see. So, for context, a few years ago, maybe like 6 years ago now, I'm sure some of you may have heard of the subreddit called writing prompts. Yeah. Where people basically post questions or sentences, and then people in the replies can write short stories or poems in response to the prompt. And that's how I kind of got started with writing. So, a lot of my writing is from that time of my life where I was just going through and answering prompts. Um, so, also keep in mind, a lot of this was written before I had a formal education in English. I haven't been a crazy active writer, but um, okay. I think I'll start with this one because it's not my best work. But I think it's I don't know. I'm down to read a few of the things that I wrote. Can't be as bad as anything you wrote. We'll see. You can be the judge of that. Okay, so this one was in response to the prompt. At first, they came back with nothing, and then they didn't come back at all. So, okay, this is what I wrote. Daddy, I'm cold. Okay, son, I'll get us some firewood. Stay here and try to get warm. I plopped down on a rock in our camp and shivered under my blanket while I waited for my daddy and the other tribesmen to return from the woods. It was getting dark, and as the darkness around the camp intensified, so did my fear. There was a full moon today, and the shadows of the trees moved as if they were alive. Just as my mind started to run away with the thoughts of monsters, I hear people running toward the camp. Daddy is back, but something seems wrong. Daddy and the other men don't stop to say hi like they normally do. They exchange their hatchets for spears, and as they run back out into the darkness, I hear the screams of a man far away. I'm still shivering, but not because of the cold anymore. It feels like an eternity since the screaming stopped, but Daddy still hasn't come back. The sun is starting to rise, but not one of the people in our camp has slept. A few of the elders and women volunteered to go out and search the woods, and I tagged along in the back of the group. I know I was too young for this kind of thing, but everyone seemed too worried to stop me. We walked through the woods for what felt like miles before we felt the ground turn to mush beneath our feet. Are we nearing a swamp? No, the nearest body of water was the opposite direction from the camp. I look down at my feet to see red, and I stop. What is this? It can't be blood. My feet don't hurt. I look left, then right, and all I see are trees when a drop hits my cheek. I wipe it off to see my hand is red now. I look up, and I'm frozen. It's Daddy. He's sleeping. I forgot about that little story. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, you think so? I appreciate that. Your heart? Oh. It's okay. I'll take your heart and fix it up for you, Peak. You just have to give it to me. All right, let's see what else I got. I wrote a horror story about butterflies. Yeah, the prompt was write a horror story about butterflies. And I think I don't remember my the vibe that I chose for this is a little bit interesting, I think. A little bit different. A little bit different. Oh, Luminous, I will take it if you offer it. But I recommend caution. So this is a horror story about butterflies. I think I tried to write this in like the style of a folk tale, because the main characters are animals, but I named them the name of the animal. Like there's a bear, but his name is Bear, for example. All right, with that little introduction. Bear spent all his life lumbering through the forest, finding food, resting, but always wondered why. Why is Bear here? What is Bear doing? And what is the point of being Bear? Until one day he saw Butterfly fluttering past his nose. Bear saw the sunlight shining through Butterfly's wings, illuminating the patterns as she flew by, and thought she was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. He called out, "Butterfly, you're the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. Fly by me. I can protect you from the scary things in this world. I can keep you safe, and in turn, I can see your beauty every day. Surely we would both be happy." Butterfly replies, "That sounds lovely. But Bear, you should know I am difficult to care for. My favorite food is the nectar of the lotus flower. It only lives in the Valley of Despair. Protect me on my way, and I will fly with you." Bear agrees, and they begin traveling to the valley. After they enter the Valley of Despair, they encounter a great number of beasts with ill will. Bear scares off the smaller ones before they decide to approach them, and defeats the ones who do approach. After much difficulty for Bear, they arrive at a lake, beside which resides a lotus flower. Butterfly feeds to her fill and sighs in contentment. "Bear, my hunger has been satisfied. Thank you for your protection, but now I must fly off. You bore me. While you provide safety from the bad things in this world and take care of me, I require entertainment. Goodbye." Bear is shocked, and he thought Butterfly would stay with him. "Wait, Butterfly, do not leave. I can entertain you. Just tell me what I must do." "Only pain is satisfying to me, good Bear. I need to see things bleed. If you want me to stay, there is one thing you can do." Bear would do anything to keep the beauty of Butterfly around. "What do you need, my love?" "Lift up that boulder and use it to crush your leg." Using all of his strength, Bear lifts the boulder and crushes his left rear leg. He cried out in pain, "Butterfly, I have crushed my leg. Will you fly with me now?" Butterfly giggles. "Bear, I am still not satisfied. Crush your other leg." Showing no hesitation now, Bear lifts the boulder again and crushes his other leg. "Butterfly, I have crushed my other leg. I can no longer walk, but I will use my arms to protect you if you stay close." Butterfly, still dissatisfied, replied, "Good Bear, you cannot give me what I desire most. I will leave you now." Bear, still determined, cried out, "Wait, I can do more. Do not go, Butterfly. I will give you all I can if you would just stay with me." Bear sees his jagged bone protruding from his rear leg and grasps it. Using a smaller rock, he removes the bone from his broken leg and screams in agony, "I will endure any pain if it means staying with you." Grasping the bone shard already dripping with blood, Bear slowly stabs himself in the chest. He then removes the shard and stabs himself again right beside the first wound. His ragged breathing turns to gurgling as he continues, cutting his chest open. Using his massive paws, he pulls open his chest and pulls out his still beating heart. With his last breath, he says to Butterfly, "I have endured the greatest pain I could imagine just for you. I am dying now. Rest upon my nose so I may marvel in your beauty as I go. Do this last thing for me." But she had already gone. I think I was in a weird mental space when I wrote this. Hello, Miki. Welcome in. That's okay. You don't need to share your popcorn. You're enough of a snack for me. Yeah, so when I wrote this, I think it was right after I had broken up with my ex-girlfriend. But like it was a really rough breakup, and I tried to keep giving her chances, and she kept just lying to me. So I felt like I was putting myself through a lot of pain, and she was just toying with me. So I feel like that's where this came from. Yeah, that's kind of what I was shooting for, but I think when I wrote it, it was I didn't really have crazy writing chops. I'm not as proud of this one as I am with some other things that I wrote. Yeah, let's. That's very true, Luminous. That's very true. I think my favorite story is the one I'll read next. I called it The Room. And this was also in response to a prompt. Let me see. Let's see. Did I have a version of this document with the prompt still in it? No. Okay. So I don't remember exactly what the prompt was. I think it was something like you have been locked in a door or locked in a room for as long as you can remember, but one day you find a key. Something like that. As I open my eyes, I realize nothing has changed. The walls are still beige, the solid metal door is still shut, the light's still bright enough for me to see, but dim enough to make it tough. The chill of the hard cement pricks my feet as I groggily sit up in my bed. The whisper of voices is just outside the range of my hearing, but this is familiar, along with every detail of the room. I strain to catch what the disembodied voices are saying, but like a prisoner gazing at a sunny day through a barred window, it's just out of reach. As I shift to lay back in the bed, I hear a soft clink of metal striking concrete. I reach down and pick up what looks like a small key, and the voices start crying out like fingernails on a faraway chalkboard. Something feels different. My eyes widen as I look to the door and I begin to shake. There's a keyhole in the door. How is that possible? Every day I look at this door and all I've ever seen is a flawless slab of metal in a frame. But I must know what this means. The atmosphere of the room has changed, as if it were lit by the fire that now drives me. I begin slowly moving towards the door, but with every step I take, I feel heavier. The air is thick like syrup, and it soon feels as if the laws of physics were rewritten solely to hinder my progress. Using all of my strength, I take the last step to the door, and the weight disappears. It's just me and the door. I take a deep breath and put the key in the keyhole. My ears begin ringing deafeningly, and the door opens to reveal a blinding white light. As I blink, the world around me becomes clearer. I'm looking up at a fluorescent light. At my bedside, long golden brown hair gently ripples like a shallow creek in winter as my mother convulses with diminished sobs. But this doesn't feel like my bed. Is this a hospital bed? I try to sit up, and the pain hits me. The room spins as I lay my throbbing head back down, gasping at the realization of my condition. A nurse passes by, but she freezes when she sees me with my eyes open and hurriedly calls for a doctor. My mother looks up and sees me awake, and her eyes widen as if she had just witnessed a miracle. She has deep bags under her eyes, and crusted tears streak down the sides of her face. My stomach sinks, and I feel the blood drain from my face as I remember what I had done, or rather, what I had tried to do. I have always been in that cold, stagnant, indifferent room. I still am, but now something is different. I know there's a key. Reading that back now, I feel like I was a bit pretentious. But I think the concept of the story is pretty interesting. I also want to just put out as a disclaimer, I've never attempted suicide. I've never wanted to. But I thought it would be a fitting and interesting approach to this prompt. We're our worst critics, yeah. Okay. I think we can go back to some established writers. Let's read the lottery. I think most people who write go through at least a small pretentious phase, or at least we feel like we do. Yeah, that's probably true. Neil Gaiman says a novel is a large piece of writing that has something wrong with it. I like that. Hmm. All right, I might read a few more things. Let's see. I don't think I will make this stream go crazy long because I'm not trying to put a huge strain on my voice. I'm definitely starting to feel the strain a little bit, but I'm at least going to make it to the 2-hour mark. Stretch, you got it. Oh, that was so necessary. That was so necessary. Thank you, Lava. Okay. Let's read the lottery, shall we? The morning of June 27th was clear and sunny, with the fresh warmth of a full summer day. The flowers were blossoming profusely, and the grass was richly green. The people of the village began to gather in the square, between the post office and the bank, around 10 o'clock. In some towns where there were so many people that the lottery took 2 days and had to be started on June 26th, but in this village, where there were only about 300 people, the whole lottery took only about 2 hours, so it could begin at 10 o'clock in the morning and still be through in time to allow the villagers to get home for noon dinner. The children assembled first, of course. School was recently over for the summer, and the feeling of liberty sat uneasily on most of them. They tended to gather together quietly for a while before they broke into boisterous play, and their talk was still of the classroom and the teacher, of books and reprimands. Bobby Martin had already stuffed his pockets full of stones, and the other boys soon followed his example, selecting the smoothest and roundest stones. Bobby and Harry Jones and Dickie Delacroix, the villagers pronounced this name Delacroix, eventually made a great pile of stones in one corner of the square and guarded it against the raids of the other boys. The girls stood aside, talking amongst themselves, looking over their shoulders at the boys, and the very small children rolled in the dust or clung to the hands of their older brothers and sisters. Soon the men began to gather, surveying their own children, speaking of planting and rain, tractors and taxes. They stood together away from the pile of stones in the corner, and their jokes were quiet, and they smiled rather than laughed. The women, wearing faded house dresses and sweaters, came shortly after their menfolk. They greeted one another and exchanged bits of gossip as they went to join their husbands. Soon the women, standing by their husbands, began to call to their children, and the children came reluctantly, having to be called 4 or 5 times. Bobby Martin ducked under his mother's grasping hand and ran, laughing, back to the pile of stones. His father spoke up sharply, and Bobby came quickly and took his place between his father and his oldest brother. The lottery was conducted, as were the square dances, the teenage club, the Halloween program, by Mr. Summers, who had time and energy to devote to civic activities. He was a round-faced, jovial man, and he ran the coal business, and people were sorry for him because he had no children and his wife was a scold. When he arrived in the square, carrying the black wooden box, there was a murmur of conversation among the villagers, and he waved and called, "A little late today, folks." The postmaster, Mr. Graves, followed him, carrying a 3-legged stool. and the stool was put in the center of the square, and Mr. Summers set the black box down on it. The villagers kept their distance, leaving a space between themselves and the stool. And when Mr. Summers said, "Some of you fellows want to give me a hand?" there was a hesitation before two men, Mr. Martin and his oldest son, Baxter, came forward to hold the box steady on the stool, while Mr. Summers stirred up the papers inside it. Yagi, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the Powerhouse. Glad to have you here. Welcome in, welcome in. We're reading the lottery right now. The original paraphernalia for the lottery had been lost long ago, and the black box now resting on the stool had been put into use even before Old Man Warner, the oldest man in town, was born. Mr. Summers spoke frequently to the villagers about making a new box, but no one liked to upset even as much as tradition as was represented by the black box. There was a story that the present box had been made with some pieces of the box that had preceded it, the one that had been constructed when the first people settled down to make a village here. Every year, after the lottery, Mr. Summers began talking again about a new box, but every year the subject was allowed to fade off without anything's being done. The black box grew shabbier each year. By now it was no longer completely black, but splintered badly along one side to show the original wood color, and in some places faded or stained. Mr. Martin and his oldest son, Baxter, held the black box securely on the stool until Mr. Summers had stirred the papers thoroughly with his hand. Because so much of the ritual had been forgotten or discarded, Mr. Summers had been successful in having slips of paper substituted for the chips of wood that had been used for generations. Chips of wood, Mr. Summers had argued, had been all very well when the village was tiny, but now that the population was more than 300 and likely to keep on growing, it was necessary to use something that would fit more easily into the black box. The night before the lottery, Mr. Summers and Mr. Graves made up the slips of paper and put them into the box, and it was then taken to the safe of Mr. Summers' coal company and locked up until Mr. Summers was ready to take it to the square next morning. The rest of the year, the box was put away, sometimes one place, sometimes another. It had spent 1 year in Mr. Graves's barn, and another year underfoot in the post office, and sometimes it was set on a shelf in the Martin grocery and left there. There was a great deal of fussing to be done before Summers declared the lottery open. There were the lists to make up, of heads of families, heads of households in each family, members of each household in each family. There was the proper swearing in of Mr. Summers by the postmaster as the official of the lottery. At one time, some people remembered there had been a recital of some sort, performed by the official of the lottery, a perfunctory, tuneless chant that had been rattled off duly each year. Some people believed that the official of the lottery used to stand just so when he said or sang it. Others believed that he was supposed to walk among the people, but years and years ago, this part of the ritual had been allowed to lapse. There had been also a ritual salute, which the official of the lottery had to use in addressing each person who came up to draw from the box, but this had also changed with time. So until now, it was felt necessary only for the official to speak to each person approaching. Mr. Summers was very good at all this. In his clean white shirt and blue jeans, with one hand resting carelessly on the black box, he seemed very proper and important as he talked interminably to Mr. Graves and the Martins. Just as Mr. Summers finally left off talking and turned to the assembled villagers, Mrs. Hutchinson came hurriedly along the path to the square, her sweater thrown over her shoulders and slid into place in the back of the crowd. Clean forgot what day it was, she said to Mrs. Delacroix, who stood next to her, and they both laughed softly. Thought my old man was out back stacking wood. Mrs. Hutchinson went on, and then I looked out the window and the kids was gone, and then I remembered it was the 27th and came a-runnin'. She dried her hands on her apron, and Mrs. Delacroix said, "You're in time, though. They're still talking away up there." Mrs. Hutchinson craned her neck to see through the crowd and found her husband and children standing near the front. She tapped Mrs. Delacroix in the arm, as a farewell and began to make her way through the crowd. The people separated good humoredly to let her through. 2 or 3 people said, in voices just loud enough to be heard across the crowd, "Here comes your Mrs. Hutchinson," and "Bill, she said it after all," or "She made it after all." Mrs. Hutchinson reached her husband, and Mr. Summers, who had been waiting, said cheerfully, "Thought we were going to have to get on without you, Tessie." Mrs. Hutchinson said, grinning, "Wouldn't have me leave my dishes in the sink now, would you, Joe?" And soft laughter ran through the crowd as the people stirred back into position after Mrs. Hutchinson's arrival. "Well now," Mr. Summers said soberly, "guess we better get started, get this over with, so we can go back to work. Anybody ain't here?" "Dunbar," several people said. "Dunbar, Dunbar." Mr. Summers consulted his list. "Clyde Dunbar," he said. "That's right. He broke his leg, hasn't he? Who's drawing for him?" "Me, I guess," a woman said, and Mr. Summers turned to look at her. "Wife draws for her husband," Mr. Summers said. "Don't you have a grown boy to do it for you, Janie?" Although Mr. Summers and everyone else in the village knew the answer perfectly well, it was the business of the official of the lottery to ask such questions formally. Mr. Summers waited with an expression of polite interest while Mrs. Dunbar answered. "Horace is not but 16 yet," Mrs. Dunbar said regretfully. "Guess I gotta fill in for the old man this year." "Right," Mr. Summers said. He made a note on the list he was holding. Then he asked, "Watson boy drawing this year?" A tall boy in the crowd raised his hand. "Here," he said. "I'm drawing for my mother and me." He blinked his eyes nervously and ducked his head as several voices in the crowd said things like, "Good fellow, Jack," and "Glad to see your mother's got a man to do it." "Welcome in, McKitsmick? Can I just call you Kits? Is that okay?" Are you here to lick my scalp? Is that what's going on? "Hello, Angel. Welcome in, welcome in." 2 first-time chatters right next to each other. How adorable. Please let me know if it's okay to call you Kits. Or if there's something else you'd like me to call me. Or call you. Say the word. Mick? Okay, I got you. Mick sounds good. You're not adorable? Are you calling me a liar? I don't lie. Welcome into the chat, both of you. We're reading the lottery right now. "Well," Mr. Summers said, "guess that's everyone. Old man want to make it?" "Here," a voice said, and Mr. Summers nodded. A sudden hush fell on the crowd as Mr. Summers cleared his throat and looked at the list. "Angel, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the powerhouse. I'm glad to have you, darling." "All ready?" he called. "Now, I'll read the names. Heads of families first, and the men come up and take a paper out of the box. Keep the paper folded in your hand without looking at it until everyone has had a turn. Everything clear?" "Ah, Mick, thank you for rubbing my head. Good luck to you, homie." "I appreciate it." "Yeah. You know, they say it's good luck to rub a bald man's head. So you can take all the good luck you'd like." The people had done it so many times that they only half listened to the directions. Most of them were quiet, wetting their lips, not looking around. Then Mr. Summers raised one hand high and said, "Adams." A man disengaged himself from the crowd and came forward. "Hi, Steve," Mr. Summers said, and Mr. Adams said, "Hi, Joe." They grinned at one another humorlessly and nervously. Then Mr. Adams reached into the black box and took out a folded paper. He held it firmly by one corner as he turned and went hastily back to his place in the crowd where he stood a little apart from his family, not looking down at his hand. "Allen," Mr. Summers said. "Anderson. Bentham." "Seems like there's no time at all between lotteries anymore," Mrs. Delacour said to Mrs. Graves in the back row. "Seems like we got through with the last one only last week." "Time sure goes fast," Mrs. Graves said. "Clark. Delacroix." "There goes my old man," Mrs. Delacour said. She held her breath while her husband went forward. "Dunbar," Mr. Summers said, and Mrs. Dunbar went steadily to the box while one of the women said, "Go on, Janie," and another said, "There she goes." "We're next," Mrs. Graves said. She watched while Mr. Graves came around from the side of the box, greeted Mr. Summers gravely, and selected a slip of paper from the box. By now, all through the crowd there were men holding the small folded papers in their large hands, turning them over and over nervously. Mrs. Dunbar and her two sons stood together, Mrs. Dunbar holding the slip of paper. "Harbert, Hutchinson, get up there, Bill," Mrs. Hutchinson said, and the people near her laughed. "Jones." "They do say," Mr. Adams said to the old man Warner, who stood next to him, "that over in the North Village they're talking of giving up the lottery." Old man Warner snorted. "Pack of crazy fools," he said. "Listening to the young folks, nothing's good enough for them. Next thing you know, they'll be wanting to go back to living in caves, nobody work any more, live that way for a while. Used to be saying about lottery in June, corn be heavy soon. First thing you know, we'd all be eating stewed chickweed and acorns. There's always been a lottery," he added petulantly. "Bad enough to see young Joe Summers up there joking with everybody." "Some places have already quit lotteries," Mrs. Adams said. "Nothing but trouble in that," the old man Warner said stoutly. "Pack of young fools." Martin, and Bobby Martin watched his father go forward. "Overdyke, Percy." "I wish they'd hurry," Mrs. Dunbar said to her older son. "I wish they'd hurry." "They're almost through," her son said. "You get ready to run tell Dad," Mrs. Dunbar said. Mr. Summers called his own name, and then stepped forward precisely and selected a slip from the box. Then he called, "Warner." "77th year I've been in the lottery," old man Warner said as he went through the crowd. "77th time." "Watson." The tall boy came awkwardly through the crowd. Someone said, "Don't be nervous, Jack," and Mr. Summers said, "Take your time, son." "Zanini." After that, there was a long pause, a breathless pause, until Mr. Summers, holding his slip of paper in the air, said, "All right, fellows." For a minute, no one moved, and then all the slips of paper were opened. Suddenly, all the women began to speak at once, saying, "Who is it? Who's got it? Is it the Dunbars? Is it the Watsons?" Then the voices began to say, "It's Hutchinson. It's Bill. Bill Hutchinson's got it." "Go tell your father," Mrs. Dunbar said to her oldest son. People began to look around to see the Hutchinsons. Bill Hutchinson was standing quiet, staring down at the paper in his hand. Suddenly, Tessie Hutchinson shouted to Mr. Summers, "You didn't give him enough time to take any paper he wanted. I saw you. It wasn't fair." "Be a good sport, Tessie," Mrs. Delacroix called, and Mr. Graves said, "All of us took the same chance." "Shut up, Tessie," Bill Hutchinson said. "Well, everyone," Mr. Summers said, "that was done pretty fast, and now we've got to be hurrying a little more to get it done in time." He consulted his next list. "Bill," he said, "you draw for the Hutchinson family. You got any other households in the Hutchinsons?" "There's Don and Ava," Mrs. Hutchinson yelled. "Make them take their chance." "Daughters draw with their husbands' families, Tessie," Mrs. Summers said gently. "You know that well as anyone else." "It wasn't fair," Tessie said. "I guess not, Joe," Bill Hutchinson said regretfully. "My daughter draws with her husband's family, that's only fair. And I've got no other family except the kids." "Then, as far as drawing for families is concerned, it's you," Mr. Summers said in explanation. "And as far as drawing for households is concerned, that's you too, right?" "Right," Bill Hutchinson said. "How many kids, Bill?" Mr. Summers asked formally. "3," Bill Hutchinson said. "There's Bill Jr. and Nancy and little Dave, and Tessie and me." "All right then," Mr. Summers said. "Harry, you got their tickets back?" Mr. Graves nodded and held up the slips of paper. "Put them in the box then," Mr. Summers directed. "Take Bill's and put it in." "I think we ought to start over," Mrs. Hutchinson said, as quietly as she could. "I tell you, it wasn't fair. You didn't give him time enough to choose. Everybody saw that." Mr. Graves had selected the 5 slips and put them in the box, and he dropped all the papers but those onto the ground, and where the breeze caught them and lifted them off. "Listen, everybody," Mrs. Hutchinson was saying to the people around her. "Ready, Bill?" Mr. Summers asked, and Bill Hutchinson, with one quick glance around his wife and children, nodded. "Remember," Mr. Summers said, "take the slips and keep them folded until each person has taken one. Harry, you help little Dave." Mr. Graves took the hand of the little boy who came willingly with him up to the box. Take a paper out of the box, Davy, Mr. Summers said. Davy put his hand into the box and laughed. Just take one paper, Mr. Summers said. Harry, you hold it for him. Mr. Graves took the child's hand and removed the folded paper from the tight fist and held it while little Dave stood next to him and looked up at him wonderingly. Nancy next, Mr. Summers said. Nancy was 12, and her school friends breathed heavily as she went forward, switching her skirt, and took a slip daintily from the box. Bill Jr., Mr. Summers said, and Billy, his face red and his feet overlarge, nearly knocked the box over as he got a paper out. Tessie, Mr. Summers said. She hesitated for a minute, looking around defiantly, and then set her lips and went up to the box. She snatched a paper out and held it behind her. Bill, Mr. Summers said, and Bill Hutchinson reached into the box and felt around, bringing his hand out at last with the slip of paper in it. The crowd was quiet. A girl whispered, I hope it's not Nancy, and the sound of the whisper reached the edges of the crowd. It's not the way it used to be, Old Man Warner said clearly. People ain't the way they used to be. All right, Mr. Summers said. Open the papers. Harry, you open little Dave's. Mr. Graves opened the slip of paper, and there was a general sigh through the crowd as he held it up, and everyone could see that it was blank. Nancy and Bill Jr. opened theirs at the same time, and both beamed and laughed, turning around to the crowd and holding their slips of paper above their heads. Tessie, Mr. Summers said. There was a pause, and then Mr. Summers looked at Bill Hutchinson, and Bill unfolded his paper and showed it. It was blank. It's Tessie, Mr. Summers said, and his voice was hushed. Show us her paper, Bill. This is called The Lottery. It's a short story. Bill Hutchinson went over to his wife and forced the slip of paper out of her hand. It had a black spot on it, the black spot Mr. Summers had made the night before with a heavy pencil in the coal company office. Bill Hutchinson held it up, and there was a stir in the crowd. All right, folks, Mr. Summers said. Let's finish quickly. Although the villagers had forgotten the ritual and lost the original black box, they still remembered to use stones. The pile of stones the boys had made earlier was ready. There were stones on the ground with the blowing scraps of paper that had come out of the box. Mrs. Delacour selected a stone so large she had to pick it up with both hands and turned to Mrs. Dunbar. Come on, she said. Hurry up. Mrs. Dunbar had small stones in both hands, and she said, gasping for breath, I can't run at all. You'll have to go ahead and I'll catch up with you. The children had stones already, and someone gave little Davy Hutchinson a few pebbles. Tessie Hutchinson was in the center of a cleared space by now, and she held her hands out desperately as the villagers moved in on her. It isn't fair, she said. A stone hit her on the side of the head. Old Man Warner was saying, come on, everyone. Steve Adams was in the front of the crowd of villagers, with Mrs. Graves behind him. It isn't fair, it isn't right, Mrs. Hutchinson screamed, and then they were upon her. Quite the interesting tale, isn't it? Yeah, I read it in high school, I remember. I did not write that. Moo. No. It's it's by Shirley Jackson. Yeah, no, that was not by me. Holy. No, this is a very famous short story. A lot of high schools read it. Yes, The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. Very good. Let's see. Wow. Actually, that took like 20 minutes to read. That's kind of perfect timing. I think as far as today goes, I might call it there. We could chat for a little bit, but I think I'm good as far as reading. I don't want to strain my voice too much, but I didn't expect my voice to get as tired as it has been. So, you know what? Maybe we'll do a bonus stream tomorrow or something to make up for not streaming much today. I don't have anything scheduled for tomorrow. I wasn't originally going to stream, but I think I'd enjoy that. Yeah? Maybe we can play some Valorant or something. I'm also going to post my schedule for next week very soon, either tonight or tomorrow. And I think I want to do another story reading stream next week, although I won't stick to just horror stories next week. I'll read more, a larger variety, I think. Let's see. What's going on in the Twitch sphere right now? Luminous, it was a pleasure having you here. It was very nice to meet you. Yeah, I had a lot of fun reading. I think I want to do this more often. And at least some of you seem to enjoy it. And maybe I'll look into different things that I can do with my voice. Maybe there's like some sort of format for like ASMR that I can do. If you guys would enjoy that. Or maybe I'll just do a just chatting stream. I don't know. There are a lot of ideas of things that I can do. But for now, let's find someone to raid. Let's see. Wait, how long is she going? Oh, Peach has been going for quite a while. I don't know if she's gonna keep going. We could raid Peach.
I don't really know the generations.
Okay. Yeah, let's raid Peach. Let's raid Peach, because Peach is lovely. And her voice is really relaxing. So, let's go say hello, yeah? I appreciate all of you for hanging out with me today. It's been quite a pleasure. I'm not sure what I want to do for a raid message. Let's balance out the horror with some happiness, yeah? Hug, raid. Let's be a little cute. Let's yeah. All right. So, I'll let you guys know if I'm planning on doing a stream tomorrow. Keep a lookout for that. If you're not in the Discord yet, that is where I will be announcing that. I also do hang out in VC a good bit. I'll probably hang out in VC today at some point. So, keep an eye out for that as well. And here are my socials as well. I'm very active on Twitter, but I think most of you have found me on Twitter already. But regardless, I'm looking forward to the next time with you all. And I hope you have a lovely night or day, whatever it is. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Hey, Maida, thank you for the raid. Hi, Lou. Hi, Maida. Hi, guys.